Monsieur Anber.
Yeah, wait, I got to fix this thing here to make sure that this sits nice because this is a new device that I'm using. So I want to make sure that this sits properly.
Now, is it charged properly? And do you have better Wi-Fi than our interview with Malik Scott?
My Wi-Fi is fantastic, apparently. My Wi-Fi. Now, is it framed good? Because I don't know what this looks like when you're watching. So first of all, let me greet you accordingly.
Now, was that the rival mug? Because I didn't see any branding there.
You know what? I think with the rival mugs, we made them left-handed, you see. I'm left-handed, so when I hold it with my right hand, you can't see it. But
I thought we were supposed to outlaw southpaws. Russ, what happened there?
Outlaw southpaws, that's right. That's right.
Now, Scully's going to be joining us any moment now, of course. We haven't had Ice on in a long time, and there's a lot to get to with Canelo, Triple G, the trilogy that ended up being a bit of a disappointment, to say the least, on Saturday. We have a lot to talk about the aftermath because of the judging, as well as what's next for both of these fighters. And we have some news and notes, and we'll answer, of course, some questions that Scully's going to be trying to join here. And that's almost the thing with Scully, who's now Team iPhone for the first time. Technology, though, with Scully.
No. He's been iPhone for a while, actually.
Really?
Better BF got him an iPhone. So he's been using the iPhone for a while.
Oh, so that's interesting. So it's Arthur Benavidez, the light heavyweight champion of the world,
gifted him an iPhone.
Well, listen, that's not bad. That's not bad. Now, okay, so maybe just a quick word then. Go ahead.
I want to add to our agenda.
Yeah.
Had a discussion this week with a gentleman on Twitter. Mark Ortega was hounding me on Twitter about my thoughts on how knockdowns should be scored. And I told you, I talked to you a little bit about that, about how many points a knockdown is worth. And that's something that I'd like to clear the air with Scully as well. So if we get a chance to do that, keep that on the agenda there, Mr.
Right. Yeah. So that I understand. So while Ice is about to log in here and make it
Felicia
my work
here, so that's the important thing. You see Felicia joined and she's watching. She's the face of our rival model, so she's watching. So that's good.
Now, what about the Makhmudov, real quickly here, who we worked with last week in the corner? His first major, I would say, top 20-ish opponent in Carlos Takam, who's been knocked out by a lot of the big heavyweight contenders in the division, but has always kind of been one of the top fighters. And I think Arslanbek has just entered the chat here, so that's interesting. We saw him have a big victory against Takam, knocked Takam down, but did not get the knockout.
Twice.
That's right, twice. Won a decision. It was a good step up, I would say, for Makhmudov, really, as he's trying to get now towards the top rankings in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, it's what you call a step-up fight. There's no doubt about it. And I think it would have been, I don't know if this is correct, but even more disastrous when he clipped him in the first round. If he got him out of there in the first round, you know, as impressive as that might have been, in the long scheme of things, I'm not sure that would have been the best thing that could have happened. Genius that he is here.
Showtime.
Showtime. So,
wait, let me just say one thing. Bronco McCart has just joined the telecast.
Nice.
Bronco McCart, my man.
Hello, Bronco. We were talking about Makhmudov, and you'll get this, Scully, when I say this, that, you know, had he clipped him and got him out of there early, you know, in the long run, that probably wouldn't have been the best thing that could happen. Because, again, you know, you think, oh, all I got to do is hit a guy, fight's over, and, you know, I'm a great fighter, and you go on.
Right.
And Arslanbek said something in the dressing room right after the fight, and I thought, this at least makes me realize that, I mean, I always known he's a smart guy, but that he understands what professional boxing is all about. And he said, it's a reality. It's a reality. Come to reality.
Yeah.
Realize that not everybody's going to go. You know, guys are going to stay. No matter how good you are, guys are going to stay. And if you can have that mindset and understand that that's what you need to do to win, is to win rounds. Arthur Beterbiev did that to himself on purpose when he won the title in California.
Against Enrico Colling,
We thought, what's going on here? Like, why are you not blasting this guy out of here like you should? and he didn't. He wanted to wait and said, I want to see if I can go 12 rounds.
Right. Right.
So those are things Scully can speak on this as a former fighter and someone, I've trained guys and, I know a thing or two about this. When you get into that pyramid, that upper echelon of great fighters, they're all good. This is why, Matthew, I told you, Canelo wasn't going to knock out Golovkin, because even if he won every round, Golovkin is a tough enough guy, strong enough guy.
Never been dropped in his career.
He will survive. You're not going to just beat him up and blast, unless he would have been a complete shot, like couldn't stand. You know what I mean? He wasn't going to take him out of there. So you learn to go rounds. And
And Scully, so Makhmudov now, we're going to get a chance to see him, of course, against the elite of the division, probably relatively shortly here in the next year or so. But the reason also we were trying to get all three of you together is to recap the big Canelo Triple G fight that ended up not delivering on the hype, being a rematch 4 years after the second fight between the two. So it was a little bit too late. We expected, a lot of the experts were going in saying Canelo's going to win. It's going to win handily. But Canelo and his team were saying they were going to go for the knockout, which didn't happen. There's a lot to unpack from the Canelo Triple G third episode. But Scully, just your thoughts going into the fight and after what you saw, the number one takeaway from that event.
I'll tell you what. It was similar to me in Mayweather and Pacquiao in that outcome. Well, no, in this regard of my mentality going in.
Oh, I see.
I didn't see any other possibility other than a Canelo by decision. I didn't see any possible thing to, Mayweather was going to beat Pacquiao by decision. I would have bet anything on that. There was no doubt. And I felt the same way about this fight. Like, I wasn't intrigued by this fight. Not even a little bit. Like, I knew, it's just the way it is.
You feel cheated, don't you? It's like feeling cheated. Like they're giving you something that not at the time that you wanted it, not when you needed it. And I'll go back to the very first fight. And I was at the press conference when Canelo beat Cotto. Now, leading up to that fight, the talk was if Canelo gets by Cotto, he's going to fight Golovkin, he's going to fight Golovkin, he's going to fight Golovkin. As soon as the fight's over, they get in the press room. Canelo's out there with Oscar. The first question comes up. So, Oscar, like you said, when can we expect this fight to happen? Well, we have to see. We're not sure. There's other things. Okay? So from the very beginning, this trilogy was skewed. Okay, they screwed us as fans and as fight people. They screwed us out of that fight from seeing it at its best. 2 controversial decisions with it back to back, and you have controversial decisions. So if ever a fight merited a rematch, there should have been that third fight almost instantaneously.
Right.
What are you talking 4 years later? You go, okay, I'm not going to fight him. I don't need him. I'm not going to fight him. You letting this guy start to walk with a cane before you give him a rematch. Please, man. Come on.
Not just that.
Right.
When they originally announced this fight a couple months ago, my first thought was, I thought Triple G retired. I didn't even realize he was still fighting.
Wait, you didn't watch his big win against Muradov at 160?
Yeah, but I mean, it just seemed like he was just like that fight really didn't get that much play. Nobody was talking about it. Like I'm on the internet all the time. I know what fights are being talked about.
Right.
Triple G was not being talked about at all. That fight, the hardcore guys, obviously, but it wasn't like super buzz. And that's why I say that's exactly why going into this, there was no doubt in my mind it was going to be a 12-round decision for Canelo. No doubt.
Yeah, but it's okay. The judges almost screwed that up for you.
Wait. I'll get that in a second, Russ. But so, Scully, you dismissed what Canelo and his team were saying they were going to go for the knockout mentality.
Yeah. You never listen to anybody. Like, I don't listen. I learned my lesson too many times, to listen to people and what they're saying. And the fact of the matter is we've discussed this before. and somebody pointed this out to me a couple years ago, and it really, like, a bell went off. I said, man, it's so obvious. Like, before every fight, everybody says what they're going to do. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, blah, 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 right? Literally, half of them are wrong. Like, every 50% or more, probably more, because even the guy that won didn't really do what he said he was going to do. So more than 50% of every fight, whatever they say before the fight, 55% of them are wrong.
Garbage.
And, you know what I mean? So you know, and there's some fights, and this one kind of, for me, fell in that thing where I didn't care what Golovkin
Reporting.
said. You know, and I love Golovkin, don't get me wrong. But for me, at 40 years old and being relatively inactive for a few years, it didn't matter. If he said, I'm in the best shape of my life, I'm going to come out like a beast, I'm going for the knockout in the first 2 rounds, I would be like, no, you're not. Like, there's no chance. Like, stop it.
But you know what? In credit to Golovkin, he hung on and hung on and hung on these years in the hopes that he was being promised this fight. He wanted it, and he stuck. Doesn't have to, but he just stuck around because he wanted the fight. There's no doubt he wanted it. He's wanted the Canelo fight 2 years before they actually fought for the first time, and was never given the opportunity. And somebody asked me yesterday on Twitter where it might have been Chris, or it might have been Chris who asked me, you know, where do I rank Golovkin, you know, on his chin, and where does he rank all time in there? And he's a great fighter. Unfortunately, he came along at a time that one of the pristine divisions of boxing was at its weakest that it might have ever been. You know, and he never had that marquee opponent. And he put his entire career.
I mean, win. Maybe marquee win, not marquee opponent.
Marquee opponent in that weight class. Let me finish my thought here.
All right.
He never had that marquee opponent until Canelo came along, and then that was shrouded in controversy, and it kind of, his whole career played out on that trilogy, or that one fight with Golovkin. And I almost feel bad for the guy, because he had litigation problems in Germany. Probably a great portion of his prime, he was still in Germany when he might have been at his physical best. Then he comes over to the States, an unknown. He's got to fight, earn his way. But he's blasting everybody out, and he doesn't have that quality in the division that the middleweight division has often been famous for. He didn't have that depth in the class. He didn't have his Fraser. He didn't have his Leonard. He didn't have his Hearns. You know, he didn't have his guy to make it until Canelo. And when he did get his sights on him, and when that kid moved up Canelo from 154 to 160, they made him wait. The new era of boxing. Oh, no, we'll do it on my time, Yeah, I'm great. Well, I'm not fighting him, but I'm great. And that's what they did. And they made this poor guy rot, you know, until he had to fight him past his prime. And I feel bad that happened to Gennady Golovkin, because as a man, he deserved better. And his legacy should be better, but he doesn't have that resume of having beaten the legends in the sport. There's no legendary names on his record.
No, there's some good fighters, though, like Kell Brook, Murata, and I think people are going to look at the
Kell Brook was a welterweight.
I know, Russ, but Golovkin beat everybody who was put in front of him, and he was avoided.
Yes.
Well, I understand what Russ is. I mean, this guy had a super career. Like, he had a very steady career, and he beat top level, you know, not superstars, but he beat David. He beat these guys. But he didn't beat Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, Duran. You know, he didn't
Monzon,
beat Roy Jones.
Lopez, you know,
there's not that many guys like Brown, period, anymore.
Well, I was going to say, it's not his fault because they weren't there. You know.
Right.
Now, okay, so Russ, let's get to the big kind of controversy maybe of the fight is the scorecards itself. And I saw you made some friends at the Nevada State Athletic Commission once again on Twitter over the weekend after the score. So we're going to go here with just to make sure we have the right people named. Steve Weisfeld and David Sutherland had it 7-5 for Canelo in a fight that pretty much going to the 9th round when Golovkin had a good round and finally woke up a little bit, and Canelo faded for the second consecutive fight in the later rounds. But you have to be extremely generous to maybe give 4 rounds to Canelo. I had it 118, 110, and I don't even have a problem with it. Not, 11 rounds won for Canelo. But what do you make of the scorecards, the judges, and the accountability that it's not really there?
Let me set the stage first, right? So we're all watching, and Scully would know this. We're all at Silo's house, well, at his friend's house. We're all the same group of guys, Scully, like when you were there, and we're watching the fight. So after, you know, we're making a joke there. Are we still scoring this? Like, are we still scoring the fight? Like, it would. So yeah, we're scoring the rounds, and so after like round 9, round 10, we're not even paying attention anymore. You know, rounds over, it doesn't matter. There's no way this can happen. As a joke, I said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a split decision. And everybody starts laughing. I say, we're in Vegas. You know, you never know. We've seen it before. First one announces 116-112. So it's a little bit closer than I thought, but okay, 116-112. Then they named Steve Weisfeld and the other one that you said,
David Sutherland.
115-113. And I thought to myself, are you telling me that after going 24 rounds of war with Canelo in the first 2 fights, Gennady Golovkin was 1 round away from getting a draw in this fight?
Maybe
round away.
For the first fight controversial draw that Golovkin and Canelo had.
Impossible. Impossible.
It was nuts.
Let me say this.
Please.
For years now, I can remember 100 fights where we're watching and we know blue corner won the fight going away, and I've said to guys in the room, don't be. It's supposed to be 119-111, and it's going to be a 3 or 4 point fight, and they're going, you crazy. I go, listen, I've seen it 400 times in a row. It's never. Very rarely is it what it's supposed to be. You know when it was what it was supposed to be generally, like when Floyd fought or Roy fought, and you know, they'd shut these guys out, Sweet Pea. But the other fights, like I would say to guys, it's supposed to be 118-110, but it's going to be 115-113. And they'd go, nah, no way. I go, I'm telling you, it's not going to be what we.
Why do you think that is, Ice? Why do you think that happened?
I know why. Go ahead.
I mean, it's one of 2 things. It's either incompetence or it's corruption.
Agendas? Yeah, agendas maybe.
You know.
You know, you're right. It's either incompetence or corruption, right? And nobody could be that incompetent, right? Like, I get it, right? But here's the thing. Here's where the part of incompetence comes in. They start giving pity rounds. So we're fighting, and I'm dominating you. Round 1,
right.
round 3, round 9, I'm just not as dominant. But if round 9 would have been in the first round, you'd give it to me. You'd give it to me.
Right.
But, well, the guy did a little bit better. He wasn't battered from pillar to post. You know, he did a little bit better.
The mentality of people. I remember, tell me if you remember this. When Roy Jones lost in the Olympics, one of the judges said, I thought Roy Jones won, but I voted against him because I didn't want the other guy to be completely embarrassed in his own country. The judge, you can look it up. The judge said that. He said, I wanted him to lose a 4-1 decision instead of 5-0. And it turned out one of the other guys was incompetent, and the guy lost. So he did it on purpose because he felt bad for the guy.
Now, and that's the other thing with Canelo Alvarez. I don't know what's going on when his fights are judged. There's been some wacky scorecards. And we know the first fight with Golovkin being a draw was really something that probably should not have happened. I think C.J. Ross probably was the judge everybody remembers. But the last fight against Bivol, it was 7 rounds to 5 for Bivol. And Bivol probably won many more rounds than just a 7-5 fight against Canelo. Sure. We had the Mayweather fight that somehow Canelo got a draw against Mayweather. That's maybe the C.J. Ross fight. I'm getting some of these bad judges confused. But no matter, like, just to me, the problem is that I think this is kind of the standard that boxing fans have come to accept. It kind of is what it is, because until there's a governing body that really wants to hold these judges accountable, nothing's going to happen.
But there is a governing body. They work for an athletic commission.
I know, but I mean, they don't.
Governing body.
Last time they put a review, they don't even make them available to the media post-fight.
Even if they're not available, which they should be, because you should be accountable for what you do. But even you didn't mention Glenn Feldman's card for AJ against Usyk, right?
Yeah, and he decided you didn't like his attempted response on social media. You blasted him as well.
Of course, you don't even want to back up what you do. Like you scored it. I'd have more respect for you if you said, I scored it this way. This is what I saw, even though we would know what you're saying is full of shit, right? Because you couldn't justify
what
that.
What did he say? How did he justify it?
He says, I can't say. You have to ask my supervisor. He was with the supervisor from the WBO and said, you have to ask him. Like, it's ridiculous. But the athletic commissions have the power to do something. They have the same way we rate fighters, the same way that cornermen can be held accountable for anything they do wrong in the corner. They can be suspended, have their license revoked. The judges have to be held to a standard.
You know why? You know what the problem is? We accept it. Everybody is going, they joke about it. They go, well, it's Vegas. It's probably going to be a bad decision. Like, instead of being mad about it, now they just, we accept it. It's going to happen. Yeah. We hope that the right guy wins, even though it's not going to be as wide of a score as it should be or whatever. We need people to be outraged, like literally freak out and go, are you people insane? Are you crazy? What are you doing? Because I've seen some, we've all seen some phenomenally bad scores, and then the people are working the next fight. They don't get punished. They don't get suspended.
That's what I'm saying. They have to be graded. You can't just get another assignment.
I get, but Russ, maybe are they training enough people? Because is it worth it for that many people to go into the judging criteria to want to be judges? I don't think it pays enough for get qualified people that interested in judging. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it does pay enough for these guys to do it, but there's no full-time judging.
Okay, but don't go in it then. Don't go in it. If you're not ready to subject yourself to the fact that if you don't do a good job, you're going to be demoted and you're going to go back to working a 4-round fight and you're not going to get the big assignment and you're going to be noted that such and such judge has been demoted. He was a class A, but now he's going to be demoted to class B or C because of his performance. If you don't want to do that, then don't be a judge. It's simple.
Yeah, but do you think there's enough pool of judges to downgrade one guy and upgrade another one?
Of course there is. And anybody can be a judge. It's not rocket science.
And let me bring up, I'm not accusing anyone of anything, nothing like that. I just want to bring up an interesting observation somebody gave me one time. They said, if you're a judge and they use Don King as an example, they say if you generally judge Don King fight cards and he does cards, Rio de Janeiro, France, do you really want to go against his guys and risk not going on these trips? And when the guy said it, it was like, at first I thought he was kidding, and then a light bulb went off, and I go, yeah, man, these same judges they're going to France, they're going to Italy, they're going all over the place. And I go, man, if they were voting against King's guys, that's right, they probably wouldn't be going on these trips. So right. And I'll give you another example. I've brought this up before, and it's not the same subject, but it's related. I went to the WBC convention, and listen, it was amazing. Like the next day, the ratings thing was being held, and basically the ratings thing is all the managers get together and whoever the representatives are, and they go and they formally suggest that their guys should be put in the top 10. I saw one time when they were like, well, where would you like him to be ranked? And the guy goes, well, I was thinking maybe number 7. and they put him in. But I was looking at these guys representing their fighters, talking to the guy on the stage, and I realized I saw those same 2 guys the night before, like in the bar, hanging out with each other. And I'm like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like I thought, a bunch of guys get in the room together at the WBC, WBA, IBF offices, and they go over each weight class, and they say, well, you know, and they debate everything. Like, that's what Russ and I would do. If me and Russ were making the top 10, that's how we would do it.
Yeah.
These guys were like, literally, the guy on the stage was asking one of the managers, where do you think he should be ranked? And he gave him like a ballpark thing. And the kid, I'll never forget, he came out. He was like unranked at all. And he came out. He walked out. He walked in there. He was unranked. He walked out. He was like number 4 in the world, and all because his manager stood up. And I'll never forget, one thing that the manager said, and in his behalf, was that he was a family man. Like, that counted towards his ranking. He goes, you know, he's only got 1 loss. He's fought 4 top guys. He's a family man. And I'm going, this is crazy. Like, this is crazy how this is being done. So that's what I even had. I'll tell you another thing real quick on that end. It's all related, right? I had a fighter who I don't even know. I never met this guy in my life. I don't know him. He contacted me on Facebook in 2012 because he said, hey, Iceman, I see that you're getting ready to go to the WBC convention. Could you do me a favor and go to the ratings meeting and see if you can get me in like the top 5? And I'm going, and I didn't know what he meant because I hadn't been there yet. So I didn't even know who this guy was. I had to look him up. But then I was like, how could I get somebody in the top 5? Like, then after I went to the meeting, I said, all I got to do is say it. All I got to do is plead his case and see if they go for it. You know, I didn't think it was going to be that easy, but apparently every year, a lot of people, that's how they get in. So, you know, so those are the same people that rule over the judges. So if that's what's at the top, you know, then you can imagine what's going to, in Connecticut, I told you before one time, there was a guy who was a judge, and I saw him as a judge judging one of our fights, the guy I was working the corner for as a second, and I didn't see him until we got to the corner, and I looked to the left, and I told the trainer, I go, he can't be a judge. That guy can't be a judge. I know that guy. There's no way he can be a judge. They go, well, he is a judge. He's right there. He's sitting in the chair. We found out later that he was friends with the governor of Connecticut, and he talked to the governor, and he got in there. And I'm saying, the governor doesn't know anything about boxing, and this guy knows less. And the governor put him in as a judge.
Oh,
And par for the course. Check this out. The fight, I'll never forget it because our guy, you know, fought. He won by split decision. This guy had our guy losing 4 rounds to nothing. The 2 other judges had our guy winning 4 rounds to nothing. So this guy literally went exactly the opposite, proving he had no idea what he was looking at. And he was a judge. He could have ruined this kid's career, you know, all because he knew the governor. So
yeah, that's kind of the world of boxing, as Russ, you know, we often said, right? It's kind of like the red light district of sports. It's a bit of the Wild West, but we'll see if anything comes of what happened with the decision, even though I think people are pessimistic at this point. Just if we look at back now with the focus, we have about 20 minutes or so left. Canelo Alvarez's next fight, after the fight, he talked about the fact that he may decide to elect and go with surgery on his left hand. It's been bothering him for a few fights now, which would then put him on the sidelines till the fall of next year. If not, he'd reconsider fighting on Cinco de Mayo weekend. And he's still mentioning Bivol as the rematch. If Bivol beats Zurdo Ramirez, Benavidez is probably the one guy that everybody wants to see him fight at this stage if he's staying at 168. Charlo, maybe. Is there anybody, like, what do you want to see from Canelo next? And do you think some of his shine of it, you know, that KO power that we saw in recent years kind of slowed down a little bit? Do you think he's a little, you know, is he still the same pound for pound threat that he used to be?
Neither of us want to answer.
So what? So there's less interest in Canelo now? Was that?
You know what? It's not that there's less interest. It doesn't matter what we think. All I know, as soon as you said that,
what fight do you want to?
You know what?
You want to Canelo in the ring next? Who would you pick?
Wait a second. Do you know what I thought of as you were saying that? Oh, he's going to have surgery. Do you know what the first thing that came into my mind?
No.
He will never fight Benavidez. That's the first thing that came into my mind because that the surgery's going to delay. Then they're going to have to see what timeline they're going to get on.
Paul, he can't fight Benavidez anytime soon.
That's what I mean. Then they got to get the timeline back set for him to rematch Bivol, because eventually that rematch is going to have to happen, right? He's not going to just want to leave it as a loss and forget about it, because then he can never venture back into the light heavyweight division, which maybe he might not want to do. So he's going to do what he wants anyways. There's nobody's going to tell him this era of boxing. And I guess maybe, I guess it's fair to say that Floyd laid the blueprint out for this, that if you're commanding the dollars and you're the guy, you call the shots. Doesn't matter what opponents are around, doesn't matter who the contenders are, doesn't matter who's number one. All the governing bodies will give you a pass because they want to keep you as their champion. Nobody is going to take the belt away from you or prevent you from fighting, which is technically what they should have done with Tyson Fury when he was announcing he's retired. They should have said, okay, here's your belt. Bye, you're retired. They didn't do that, right? Because that's their champion, and they didn't want to give it to the winner of the Anthony Joshua Usyk fight, because that would have been one guy holding all 4 titles. They hate that, you know, that it's unified. I think the governing bodies hate unified champions more than anything.
Well, Canelo's a unified champion at 168, Russ.
I'm sorry?
Canelo's a unified champion at 168, so there's a bit of a contradiction right there.
No. What I'm saying is that whatever it is, he got. Yes, he is undefeated. Now let's see what's going to happen when a number one contender from one of those 4 comes up that's different from the number one contender in the others, when he has to make a mandatory, because now there's going to be 4 mandatories on the table for him.
That's right.
Let's see what he's going to do. But my point was that he calls the shots. He does what he wants. It doesn't matter. If he decides, I'm focusing on Bivol and I'm focusing on the rematch, my hand, I injured, you know, I have surgery, I need a delay. So now we're going to end up with 4 interim champions in all those, in the super middleweight division. Everyone's going to become an interim champion while he recuperates, you know, because he can't fight. And then they're going to give him a pass so that he can go and fight Bivol again in the rematch. Should Bivol beat Ramirez? Blah, 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 blah.
Like the belts are being held hostage, essentially.
Yeah, and you know what else? You're the champion. You're the undisputed champion. Well, they can never get the rankings right. You know what I mean? Like, one guy, whoever's number 1 by the WBA is not going to be number 1 by the WBC. So the mandatory guy for there. So by the time you get to the 4th mandatory guy, you've already been stripped of 2 of them. You know what I mean? So,
which is surprising,
you know,
on belts that long at 168.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised, because they're always going to strip, and you know, and he's not many guys will be able to hold on to it as long as he has. He gets a pass.
When did he win? When did he win the undisputed title? When did he become undisputed?
I'm going to take a look. Wasn't it against Callum Smith, or was he already defending by then?
No, it was against Caleb Plant,
not Callum Smith. Caleb Plant, you're right.
So how long ago was that?
Caleb Plant was in November of 2021, so we're not even a year into it yet.
We'll be a year into it now.
Well,
And he hasn't defended the 168-pound title.
Well, theoretically,
any of them.
No, wait. Triple G counted as a defense, even though Triple G had never fought at 168 ever. But it counted as a defense. But it's all convoluted. But really, what I would like to see is that Canelo, to me, it's a bit disappointing what we saw from Canelo in the later rounds against Bivol and now against Golovkin. And some people are now saying it's not exactly the same comparison, but when Roy Jones went up to heavyweight to win against John Ruiz, he was never the same when he went back to lower weight classes. Like, could Canelo be in a position that he may not be the same powerful guy anymore, and he's more confident or more, I'd say, satisfied outboxing opponents, using his defense more so than trying to get guys out? That could be.
I think he breezed through the first 2/3 of that fight and said, you know, I'm not going to go in there and make this a war, get crazy. Just do what I got to do. Bing bang. Golovkin put a little more pressure on him. He waited a bit, you know, boxed, watched the clock. Well, time's almost over. Pulled the bird's tail, and that was the end of the fight. You know, it was done. I think you could look more at it in the Bivol fight, because Bivol pressed him and pushed him and came to fight and made it, and, you know, worked him. Yeah, worked him. I don't think in this case it was that. He breezed his way through the early part of the fight and really never looked back.
Well, if I had a choice, I'd want to see him fight Benavidez, because I don't think he'll ever fight Benavidez, and I don't think he can beat Bivol. But let's see.
I'd like him to fight Benavidez as well, and I'm a little disappointed in always this thing of whenever someone wants to challenge him, he always says, "What did you do? What have you done? You fought nobody. What did you do?" Okay, but you're always going to fight nobody at the start. I mean, you wouldn't be fighting me if I had a resume like yours. I can't have a resume like yours if you don't fight me. I've won the fucking title twice. So fight me, you know, like it doesn't matter. That's if I'm so easy, fight me, you know, but they don't payday, you want payday, you want payday. Okay, but yeah, everybody wants a payday, of course. But the guy, at least he's a champion. He's earned his shot. It's a fight you could sell. No, don't want to fight. I don't get it.
But you know what else has been going on for years? Like if I ran boxing, it would run so smoothly because I would go, I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm giving you how we're supposed to run it. You have to fight this guy who we never heard of. His name is Joe, and he's from Michigan, and he's ranked #2. He's the next guy. Like when people say, "Oh, who's he gonna fight?" I go, "Man, there's a list of 10 guys in a row that he can fight. What do you mean, who's he gonna fight?" But yeah. Even though you're ranked #2 or #3 or #4 in the world, it doesn't matter if TV doesn't think you're. You know, like the TV says, "Oh no, we don't want him. We want him. We want that guy." Well, what do you mean? I'm #2 in the world.
Yeah, but in this case,
so they'll take #7 over #2 because they heard of #7.
But Canelo is bigger than TV, I think, at this point. Like TV,
that's what I'm saying. But he shouldn't be bigger than the sanction body.
No, he should not.
What I mean,
no.
You know, like that's like it's crazy. Like look at in baseball. Everybody loves the Yankees. You know, in America, Yankees are America's team. Like, they're the iconic team.
Right.
But if they don't score more runs than the Twins, then the Twins
lose.
are going to the World Series. You know what I mean? But in boxing, it doesn't work that way. That's bizarre. You know what I mean? We're in a messed up thing. Paul Banky just gave. I just want to say, Paul Banky just gave me a shout out. In the comment section. So
I hope Paul Banky liked the gloves we made for him. I showed you those gloves, right? I showed you those gloves that we made for him, and I ran.
Paul just said Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah. Now the West Coast, of course, and they're having a heck of a season, and they're probably the favorites in the National League. Okay, before we wind down the podcast here, the call, Russ Scully wanted to discuss a knockdown rule situation. Now, Crawford, just a little side note, Crawford and Errol Spence looks like that could finally happen in November. I think Mike Coppinger reported it, but not a done deal just yet. If that happens, I expect that to be a hell of a fight. And really, it's probably the last year for both men to face each other still at their peak levels before it starts getting into the past due date, time frame. But Russ, how about you explain to Scully your reasoning and your thinking of how knockdowns should be scored? Because, of course, it's really off what judges are doing now, but you want to try to bring up this point.
Well, right. First of all, the internet sometimes does some crazy stuff. I saw a meme today of Spence and Crawford all with gray hair and gray beard. Did you see that?
Yeah. They did the same with Mayweather and Pacquiao a few years ago. Yeah, and I thought it was a real picture, and I was like, man, Spence got old looking. I didn't realize it was a meme at first.
But we're not at that level just yet between Spence and Crawford. Like, I still think this is much better than Mayweather-Pacquiao at this stage of their careers.
It's still late. Even if it happens November,
I'm losing interest.
6 months to a year late.
Right, I'm losing interest the same way I lost interest in Mayweather and Pacquiao, because if they're not fanatical about fighting each other, imagine Duran. Like, you know what I mean? Remember when Duran was in line to fight somebody? He'd be spitting on them in the hotel lobby. You know what I mean? And he made it very clear that he hated you. You know what I mean?
And wanted to fight you.
Yeah.
And wanted to fight you.
Right. And it's just a different world, man. It's a different game.
All right, okay. 5 minutes left.
Here's my beef that I had with Scully. Mark Ortega. Had a little back to back with him, back and forth with him, I should say, on Twitter, because I was trying to make a point, but the thing kept coming back. Well, that's not the way they do it. So because that's not the way they do it, I must be wrong, right? It can't be them that's wrong. It has to be me that's wrong.
Right.
Scully, how many points is a knockdown worth? A legitimate knockdown, not a knockout, not a trip or a slip, but let's just say a legitimate knockdown is worth how many points?
1.
1 point. So if me and you are fighting,
Right.
and I'm winning the round,
Yeah.
and I knock you down, I win the round how much?
10-8.
10.
Well,
And if
I know exactly what you're getting at now, and I got it. I can.
Wait, let him finish.
But I have to set the phase because I go one step further.
Okay.
If I knock you down again, how many? What's the score?
So it goes 10-7.
10-7. So we established that it's 1 point, right? Our knockdown is worth 1 point.
Yeah.
In the event you and I are fighting, and I'm winning the round. I'm winning the round cleanly. Not beating you from pillar to post. I'm not battering you all over the ring, but I'm winning the round. And you clip me with a shot at the same time I kind of trip on a fold up in the canvas and I go down, but it's a good shot and the ref has to call a knockdown for me.
Right.
If I'm winning the round, but you get a point for the knockdown, wouldn't that make the round 10-10?
Right. Yeah.
But nobody scores it this way.
Well, yeah, like it's an automatic. Like I'm winning. Nope, you lost because you got dropped. And I'll say I'll give you a scenario.
On a mediocre punch.
Right. Well, no. Let me give you. I can be honest. Right. One of my bigger wins as a pro, I beat a guy named Billy Bridges. I'm sure you remember Billy. Billy was a great amateur, 300 amateur wins. He was 16-0 as a pro. We fought on ESPN. Really tight fight. Going into the 10th round, it was a really tight fight. Literally, and I don't know who was winning the last round. I don't remember. But literally, with like 12 seconds to go, I catch him with a hook, and he goes down. But it's a really quick thing. He goes down. He's not really hurt. I don't think he's hurt. He gets up. And I win the fight by split decision. I'm assuming if I didn't catch him with 12 seconds to go and he goes down and gets up, that I probably would have lost or would have been a draw. So I won because I clipped him right at the end. He didn't even really hit the ground. He went like onto a knee and then he got back up. So realistically, I probably should have had a draw that fight. Like, they gave me the same credit. This is what Russ is saying. They gave me the same credit for that they gave Joe Frazier for bombing Muhammad Ali in the 15th round.
Actually, they didn't even do that. They just gave Frazier the round.
Yeah. But you know what I mean?
+1.
Yeah.
Like that's the way they used to score it in those days. Like you'd score by rounds. And in the event there was a knockdown, you get a +1. So in the event that the fight ended in a tie, the +1 would make the difference.
Oh, so they didn't take a point away. They added a point.
They added a point.
Because it wasn't a point must system back then.
Okay.
Right.
But either way, like, and if it was, they would have made that a 10-8, even though it was a Titanic compared to my knockdown, it was Titanic. But, I got the same basic credit. So
my argument and my experience and where I feel that this proved to me that this is so totally wrong because it happened in the same fight was Badou Jack against James DeGale. So the first round is going on. Nothing much is happening, right? It's the first round. They're kind of looking at each other. Not much of it. If anything, Badou has a slight advantage only because maybe he's doing a little bit more work than James DeGale. With seconds left in the round, he gets hit with a shot with his legs squared up. As he's pulling away, his legs are squared up. He's got no balance. He gets sat on the seat of his pants. What went from a 10-9 round for Badou Jack now became a 10-8 round for DeGale. 3 points he got for a one measly, shitty knockdown. Okay, 3 points.
10-9 DeGale.
10-8.
No, but it should have been 10-9 DeGale instead of 10-10 with your way of thinking.
Could have been 10-10. I think could have been 10-10. You give the guy the point. That made it even. He was going to lose the round. The knockdown saved him from losing the round. That's the way it should be. It's worth 1 point. However, that said, We go fast forward into round 12. Badou Jack batters James DeGale from pillar to post, drops him, beats him, I mean, to the verge of almost stopping him in the last round. You look at the score, the first round and the last round are both scored 10-8, and they are two of the most opposite specters of beating up somebody that you could possibly imagine with the same score.
So what's the problem scoring it 10-9 for DeGale in that round that he barely won instead of 10-10? That's the extra point. Instead of scoring it 10-8, give that 1 point extra of 10-9 because you didn't win the round, but you scored the knockdown.
Well, then, what do you say that again? I don't want to agree to something I don't understand. Now say that again.
That 10-10 is the way you would score it in your way of doing things if you're losing the round, but you scored a knockdown.
Yes.
But now it's judges, what they do is they not only swing it completely the other way around, and they give it 10-8 to the guy who was losing the round but scored the knockdown. So I say instead of just doing it 10-10 or 10-8, score it 10-9 for the guy who scores the knockdown but doesn't win the round.
But you're still saying that the knockdown is worth 2 points.
Well, it's
now,
not free.
This is the other thing that's a problem. Judges have to have the ability. Might be the hardest thing about judging, but to me, it's the clearest thing. You have to judge how significant of a punch, how much damage that punch did. That's what gets you that extra point. That's the thing that's important.
They never do that.
The one where you get clipped a little, oh, you're not hurt, or you stumble, you trip, and you get hit. Everybody knows you didn't get knocked down with that. All they can say is, but he got hit on the way down. Okay, you got touched. Okay, yes, true, but the punch didn't put you down. You probably would have fallen anyways.
Well, not just that. Like, say Hagler Hearns in the first round. Hagler and Hearns landed better shots than other shots in other fights that dropped people. You know what I mean? Like, Hagler landed 20 shots that were worth what other people have dropped people with. So just because Hearns didn't go down, like Hearns clipped Hagler with some rockets. And because Hagler has a chin from out of this world, Hearns couldn't get any extra. Hearns must have been like, man, give me something. I'm hitting this guy with like the most titanic. Like he hit Hagler with the same right hand he hit Duran with.
Yeah. And Pepino Cuevas. Yeah,
Hagler halfway laughed at him. You know what I mean?
And that's Russ's point then, that sometimes, Scully, the scorecard should not just be 10-8, or like they should play with the 10-point must system more and not even need knockdowns. But if it's 10-7, if it's a domination, etc. But I just don't think it's going to happen that way, Russ. But I understand what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying that they should play with it more because they can't handle what they're playing with now. They can't handle just understanding that a knockdown is worth a point. It's a simple concept. It's worth a point. We'll give you that. It's worth the point. And you all agree to it as judges that a guy scores a knockdown in a round that he wins it 10-8. You agree to that. How do you get away from that concept when you feel like saying, oh, you know what? He was losing the round, but he scored one little quick flash knockdown. It's 10-8. Now it's suddenly worth 2 points.
Russ.
And if you're losing the round and score a knockdown, you win it 10-8. That's 3 points. Make up your mind. How many points is the fucking thing worth?
Russ, can I ask you something?
Yeah, Scully, wrap it up with this here. We
Russ,
gotta go.
Do you drink espresso before the show? You get pretty excited.
No, but I'm sick and tired. Like, it's so you can make something so easy, so difficult, and you argue and tell me, but you have no reason for your argument. You're arguing me. No, that's the way it's done. This is the thing I hate the most. That's the way it's done. That's your reasoning? That's your reasoning. That's the way it's done. I'm giving you facts as to what a knockdown is worth. That's the way it's done.
I hope Stephanie, your wife, wasn't sleeping, Russ, before the podcast started, right? Because I think you woke up your house. But I enjoy the passion. That's what everybody loves, of course. We're going to get the full thoughts of Russ for sure. Scully, any parting shots before we go? Anything you need to we look forward to? Any news on when you'll be back in Montreal by any chance?
I'm waiting on the guys, I'm waiting on Arthur. Arthur's my reason for Montreal. And
I'm getting you a job. Sit tight.
I'm in.
We'll have
I'm in.
We'll have
I know. I already accepted on your behalf.
Thank
All right,
you.
final thoughts quickly on what happened over the weekend, or anything else you're looking forward to. The next probably big fight, I guess, on the schedule. I'd have to look sure, but for you, it's going to be probably Lomachenko, right?
Yeah, Lomachenko back in the NYC. So I'm excited to be back at the Garden. So that's the next big one, I think. And then looking at maybe possibly November 12th, maybe Vegas. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, we'll have plenty of time to talk about the Loma fight, because that's actually a boxing match. It's happening on October 29th. But unfortunately, a lot of the media and mainstream fans, and casual fans more than mainstream, I should say, are going to be tuning in to a Jake Paul fight. So
okay, that's your last word. That's your parting
no,
thought.
but we got to make sure this podcast.
Can I hang up this thing by myself?
You can. In this podcast, we'll be talking about Loma much more than Jake Paul Anderson Silva on that October 29th show.
Bro, that's the last time you mentioned it on the same breath as you say Loma's name. You understand?
That's right, Russ. All right, Scully. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll be in touch next week.
All right, guys.